talk the latest in Brewers is our guy, Mr. Hunter Baumgardt. Hunter, how you doing, man?
I'm doing great. Good to be on with you again, Dan.
Man, we appreciate you taking some time here and such. And just kind of looking back, Hunter, I guess, on this series against the A's, I think it's clearly evident that ball likes to travel out of that ballpark in that. I mean, what do we take away, or what do you take away from a series loss to the A's, and how much do you factor in that ballpark and maybe just not fitting, the style that the Brewers play, I guess?
Yeah, I think that's a really good point. I think the obviously the ballpark is conducive to home runs. We saw that especially in the first game, a little bit less in the second game, and even to a lesser extent last night. But overall, you put those teams in a AAA park, at 2,000 feet of elevation, not as high as Coors Field, but still you've got elevation, you've got the dry heat, and you got the wind blowing out. That's going to be conducive to a lot of home runs. And there were simply pop-ups to the outfield that got outs just because they just kept carrying. And you also add in that I was comparing the kind of where the fences are compared to like a Coors Field, right? Because that's really the only field in baseball you can compare it to because of the elevation. And so that Las Vegas ballpark is about 10 feet shorter in left, right, center, just kind of overall. To hit a home run, you have to hit it 10 less feet. So you do, and that's a significant amount. I mean, you think about how many balls are hit to the warning track or maybe, 10 feet away from being a home run. Well, those are home runs in that park. And then you add in the elevation and the conditions and everything. And that's why you saw a lot of those home runs over the 3 games. And as we know, the Brewers are not prolific in hitting home runs. So it didn't really play into their hands. The good thing was it felt like they were never out of it because one swing could put it over the fence, even if it was just a fly ball in every other park in baseball. But I think overall, I don't take a lot from it just because of the wild and wacky conditions. I think obviously you don't like to lose, and they counted as wins and losses. So if the games are going to count, you're going to kind of criticize them and see what you have to do. I think a couple of things were positive. For sure, Brandon Sproat was probably the best part of the series, other than getting the win on Monday night. But Brandon Sproat going 6 innings of 1-run ball last night was really key to kind of get him to bounce back, especially in those conditions. But otherwise, Robert Gasser and Kyle Harrison start, I don't know what to put into it. I mean, Kyle Harrison's, I don't think, you take him out of that ballpark, I don't know if he gives up 8 runs and 2 1/3 all season long. So it's a really weird way to look at the stats now from now on, because you almost have to throw those starts out for Gasser and Harrison. But I am eager to see how these guys bounce back and maybe what they took away, because you can probably learn at least something from a start going the way that it did.
You mentioned Brandon Sproat and, the performance he had last night, coming kind of off the heels of Pat Murphy earlier on, was it last week or so, kind of calling out his performance and saying, hey, we're not a rebuilding team here. We can't have duds, like that and such. Is Sproat's biggest thing now, because I think it's clear that we've seen he's got stuff, he's got talent, but is the biggest thing that he needs to figure out is just the consistency and start to kind of stack that success and have consistent games like he did last night?
Totally. And it's stacking success. It's efficiency as well. I mean, he said after that same start in Houston when Pat Murphy said that we can't handle many duds like this. Brandon Sproat said to reporters after that game, I got to focus on just getting through 5 innings at this point. Well, he did that the last 2 starts after that start in Colorado. He went 5 innings, allowed 3 runs. And then last night goes 6 innings, allowed 1 run. And he could have probably went, further into the game, but you had an off day today and you had your guys ready in the bullpen. Trevor McGill hadn't thrown since Friday. So you had your guys ready in the bullpen if need be. And so that's the decision you made. And of course he gave up a home run, Sproat did, in the 6th inning. So I don't totally disagree with taking him out at that point. You kind of got as much as you probably wanted to get out of him. But I think it's huge. He hadn't completed 6 innings since mid-April. This was probably his, I would think, second best start in a Brewers uniform. He went 6 2/3 of 1-run ball against Toronto in April. I would say that probably was his best, but this was probably, one of his more, it might have been even the more efficient outing last night because of the pitch count staying low throughout the night, not many 3-ball counts, not many walks. I think that is so key because in order to get through 5 innings, you've got to be efficient. You've got to not walk guys. You got to not put runners on base. So maybe we're starting to see a little bit of a turn since those comments in Houston of, okay, things might be starting to turn a little bit. He 5 innings of 3 runs against Colorado, 6 innings of 1 run against the A's. I know it's Colorado. I know it's against the A's, but you take into account the ballparks in which he was in, and I think you kind of say, oh, maybe that's even more impressive than it looks just when you look at the opponents that he was facing. So the Brewers need him right now with the pitching staff injuries that they have. Sproat is a key part of this thing. And when he's, as Pat Murphy has said, like when he's on, he's really good. He just has to find a way to be consistently on. And it feels like maybe he's turning a little bit of a corner. We'll see next time out.
I got to ask you, Hunter, and I know you noticed it or you mentioned it on your Twitter account last night, but Andrew Vaughn did get a rep in at third base last night. And the way he's hitting and the way Jake Bauers is hitting, I don't know if you've been asked this or if it's something that you thought is, and I know he did a couple times in the White Sox era when he was with there, but are we going to see another Travis Shaw thing where they might try to have Andrew Vaughn at third base just to keep all those bats in that lineup, or do you think that's not realistic at this point?
Well, that's a great question. Honestly, it's kind of on my list to ask Pat Murphy tomorrow because I'm kind of curious now, and I like it's kind of been in the back of my mind throughout the last month or so since he came back and has been hitting. I mean, the guy's hitting 370 this season. I mean, it's hard to keep any type of bat out of that lineup. But I know his at-bats, aren't the same as maybe how many other guys like a Contreras have or whatnot. He's got 92 at-bats, and a guy like, Terang's got 236. So I get it. That's different. But to still be hitting 370 after 29 games this season is pretty good. And, he's got a couple of homers. His walk to strikeout isn't too bad. 7 walks, 10 strikeouts. His on base is 426, and that OPS sitting at 980. It's hard to keep that guy out of the lineup. However, it's hard to get everybody in the lineup. It's become a Mitchell-Vaughn platoon. And you're like, well, those guys don't play the same position. Well, if you think about it, if you want Vaughn in the lineup at first base, which is really to this point, that was the only position he was able to play until last night. Okay, well then you put Bauers because you don't want to take Bauers out because he's been one of your hottest hitters, if not your best throughout the season so far. So you put him in the outfield. Okay, Churiel goes to center, Sal in right, you take out Mitchell. If you want Mitchell in the game, Mitchell's in center, Churiel's in left, Sal's in right, and then you put Bauers at first. And then if Yelich is if he's the DH, then Vaughn's out of the lineup. So it's been Vaughn or Mitchell, depending on if they're facing a lefty or righty. They faced a righty in Jack Perkins last night. Now he has reverse splits, so the righties were actually hitting 294 against him. So I think that probably went into the calculus of putting Vaughn out there, and you just want Vaughn in the lineup. So I do wonder if because of what we've seen from Vaughn, like, do you consider it? Because, boy, offensively, I mean, what are maybe the biggest complaints from fans and just watching the games this year has been the left side of the infield. And how do you solve the left side of the infield? Well, if he can play admirable defense, if he can play the same kind of defense Luis Rengifo can, and that line, that batting average of 370 compared to what Luis Rengifo is doing right now, sitting at 204, I mean, that just opens up a world of possibilities. So I may ask Pat Murphy tomorrow. I may ask to see if maybe they asked last night or if anybody else has any insight on that at this point, because, before each game, the Brewers do, like, Vaughn takes reps at third. Vaughn even sometimes takes reps at shortstop or second base, and Joey's taking reps at first. Like, they just mix it up because you never know if you're in a situation like last night where Terang's at short and Renifo's at second and Vaughn's at third. Like, you never know if you're going to be in that scenario. So that's why they do that pregame. And I've always kind of in the back of my mind went, man, this offense would look really good if Vaughn could play third base. So I think it's something to watch. I don't know if it's imminent, but I think it's something to watch.
We're talking with Hunter Baumgardt, Brewers reporter for Fox Sports Radio Wisconsin, Fox Sports 920, also the host of the baseball pregame show and Milwaukee Baseball Tonight. I got to ask you about the Brewers locking up another young player in the minor league system with Lara. Were you surprised to hear about that? And whose job essentially do you think is in trouble with him signing a long-term deal? Is it Mitchell? Is it Frelick? Is it nobody at this point?
Yeah, it's two good questions. I was a little surprised. If you would have said, Hunter, coming into this season, who are they going to lock up in their minor leagues? I probably would have said Jesus Madej. But then, you think about him more, and he probably is asking for a little more money. I mean, he's the top prospect in baseball, so I got to think that he's, maybe waiting back a little more. Cooper Pratt and Luis Lara, obviously two guys who are ranked highly in the Brewers system, but not as high as a Jesus Madej when you look at the overall rankings in baseball. So it makes sense for the organization, and it makes sense for these two guys to be locked up. I didn't necessarily see them doing two in a couple of months, but wow, they seem to be doing this trend and kind of setting this trend of locking guys up before they get to the major league level. So with Luis Lara's job, I am interested because, like, you know, and I was getting some questions on my show last night, like, okay, Blake Perkins is not doing well at the major league level. Can we put Luis Lara in there? And it's from what Pat Murphy has said this year and what the Brewers have said, like, they want these guys to play consistently if they come to the major league level. So if Luis Lara is called up and gets into a game a week, they don't want that. They want him to keep getting consistent at bats, especially because now they paid him. So now you have that, you know, guaranteed $31 million with incentives. It could be up over 70 over these, you know, 7 years, and the 3 club options on the backside. You want this guy to continue to get consistent at bats. And right now, Frelick's heating up a little bit. Mitchell has been pretty good over the last month or so. Obviously, you're not doing anything with Churio. So I don't know where he fits at the moment. Like, you know, if there's an injury or something, and obviously with Mitchell's injury history, you want a guy who can step in. They don't have a ton of depth in the outfield when you look at the entire minor league system, especially when you compare it to the infield and what they have, you know, in the middle infield and even third base and first base with guys like Brock Wilken and Andrew Fisher, et cetera. Like you have that infield, there is a lot of depth there. But the outfield doesn't necessarily have that. So it makes sense for them to do that. Now, Mitchell has 2 years of control left. Frelick has 3. So you're still a ways away from them being like free agents. However, maybe it makes them a little more expendable if you feel you want to make a move at some point. I don't think anyone's job is in imminent danger, but I think it does put them a little on notice that, okay, we have a guy who we believe in who's hitting 338 in Nashville, you know, through, however, 50-some games this season with 7 home runs. The power has come, and he's one of the best outfielders in all of the minor leagues. So, you know, I think it kind of puts him a little bit on notice. I don't think it's an urgent thing for those guys. But, yeah, keep an eye out as far as, you know, over not even just the next month, but into next year and the years after that.
So Brewers have the off day today. They return home tomorrow against the Phillies, which I think we can all agree the Phillies are a different team now since the beginning part of the season. They're playing a lot better. We don't get the Miz versus Sanchez game, but Miz will start tomorrow, and I think it was Sanchez on Sunday, I believe I saw. But you look at the Phillies, and then after that, it's the Guardians. And then after that, it's the Braves. And then you throw the Reds and Cubs in there to round out the end of the month of June. How big, I know it's just middle of June here, Hunter, but how big is this stretch of games here for the Brewers to close out the month of June when you know those are the opponents you've got?
Yeah, you've got some really good teams. You got some teams that are playing well, some teams that are leading their division. Obviously, Atlanta's been the best in ball so far. Like you mentioned, the Phillies have, you know, got that Don Mattingly magic going ever since he took over as the interim manager. And then, of course, the Cubs, and then the Reds, couple of division foes. It's kind of like what we thought when they went into that stretch in May of Yankees, Padres, you had the Twins in there, but then you had the Cubs, Dodgers, and Cardinals, and they ran the table through that. And absolutely, and that's, you know, why they are where they are right now. And so I think, you know, honestly, I don't put it past them to have a lot of success against these teams again. I mean, they seem to play well against no matter who it is. I think the pitching is going to keep them in the game. Like you mentioned, Miz goes tomorrow night, and then Kyle Harrison will face Sanchez on Sunday. Shane Drowan, who's been good, will start coming up Saturday night as well. So I like my chances with those 3 on the mound this weekend, 2 of which you got back in the Caleb Durbin trade, which is interesting to think about. But I think it's going to be a stretch where, sure, there's going to be times where maybe they lose, you know, a series here and there, although they really haven't done that. They've only lost 2 of their last 13 series, so it's not like they've been losing series very often, even against some of those teams. I mean, sweep the Yankees to win a series against the Padres, sweep the Cubs, sweep the Cardinals. I mean, you're talking about quite a stretch they had in May, and I think all of that built confidence for where they are headed here in June. I think that stretch can say, okay, you know, we did it against those teams. We can do it against these teams. And even a team like Atlanta or even a team like Cleveland. who are some of the best in their divisions. Like, I think that is going to, you can take confidence from that and hopefully ride it into June and continue to have your winning ways. Because look, the Brewers have been really, since April 26th, they've been the best record in baseball with 28-12. And I believe the Phillies actually have the second best record in baseball since then. So it'll be two really hot teams. I know the Brewers just lost the series, but overall, be two hot teams coming into this weekend. So it should be a fun series.
Last question for you before I let you go. And I know it's less than 2 months away, but it's a hot topic right now. How do you feel on the trade deadline talk? I know the popular name out there is Scooble and such. And was it, I think, Jeff Passan kind of making the case, do it like a CC Sabathia, type of thing. I mean, I have my doubts whether they're going to do anything, but where are you at on all this trade deadline chatter surrounding the Brewers?
Yeah, I also have my doubts too, as far as some major move, giving up a significant amount of prospect capital for one of those guys like Tariq Skubal. Like, it just doesn't, it's not how they operate usually. However, if there is a year to do that, you just came off of your best regular season ever. You got to the NLCS. You won a playoff series for the first time since 2018. You're one of the best records in baseball yet again, and hopefully that continues over the next couple months as we head into the trade deadline. Like, boy, if there's a time to sacrifice a little future for the now, at some point, it's got to be tempting for Matt Arnold. As much as they want to have the bites at the apple, and I know that was a David Stearns thing, but it's how they kind of operate, right? Get into the postseason and see what happens, because it can be pretty random, and it's not like you get Scooble and automatically you're winning the World Series. But against that Dodgers lineup, it's not going to hurt to have a guy. It wouldn't hurt to have a guy like that. And we'll see who becomes available as we get more towards the trade deadline. It's tough because they're, with having the 6 playoff teams in each league, like, more teams are in it than ever at these points in the season, or think they are, even come July 1st. So you don't really get a good idea of who's going to be on the trading block until, mid-July, early to mid-July. So I think names other than Scooble will start to pop up here. And who knows, Detroit could be a lot better. He's going to come back, and who knows, maybe Detroit makes a run and does, as Scooble said. Like, Scooble said, look, if we start winning games, then all that chatter goes away. So that could happen over the next month. So it's still, like you said, about 2 months away. But it just kind of, if there is going to be a year to do it, 3 straight division titles, going for your 4th, like, I just got to think that maybe there's a little more bug in the ear of Matt Arnold saying, you know what, maybe this is the one where we sacrifice a little bit to see if we can go on even a better run than you did last year.
Hunter Baumgardt, Brewers reporter for Fox Sports Radio 920, Wisconsin, host of the baseball pregame show and Milwaukee Baseball Tonight on Fox Sports 920. Dude, appreciate the time as always. Thank you for taking some time to talk with us up here and in the 715 and that. Have a fantastic rest of your week, dude, and hopefully we get another series win this weekend against the Phillies.
Absolutely. No, that would be awesome. Appreciate you, Dan, and have a great rest of the day up there.